In this video, we're looking at UFC 305. I will give you my full card predictions. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. At the top of the card in the main event, we have the fight to make at middleweight. For the belt, all the bad blood you can ask for. If you really want to hedge, if you want to lock, I think the African guy is going to win. Great careers on both sides, and these guys have made their money in very different ways. For Adesanya, he's been clean, sharp, technical. He moves laterally as well as anyone we've ever seen. Jab, low kick, move, repeat. Those things start to lull guys to sleep, and then he explodes forward with a boxing combination and it knocks guys out. You saw that against Alex Pereira, you saw that against Paulo Costa, Robert Whittaker, Derek Brunson. And for Dricus du Plessis, he does it differently. He just overwhelms guys with his pace, pressure, size, power. He looks like a light heavyweight in there, and it shows in the performances. He's not the tallest middleweight in the world. Adesanya is going to be significantly taller, but Dricus du Plessis is maxing out that 6'1 frame. Dude's thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, pause. And he's just landing with more power than his opponents. He's taking all of their best shots like they're nothing, and he's not afraid to take one to give one. And you gotta tip your hat to just the athleticism and the fighting spirit that he has, because he does a lot of awkward stuff, a lot of offbeat stuff, sometimes sloppy stuff, but he gets away with it because he's such a tank. The line for this fight is pretty close, and it makes sense. I've actually gone back and forth with this one to give you a peek behind the curtain. When I'm preparing for the video, I do it in video order, so top down, I prepare in that way. I saved this one until the end, so I took care of every other fight first and then tackled this one for hours. And Oscar throughout that process was no help at all. But it's taken so long to come up with the prediction here because this one's so tricky. On one hand, I could see Adesanya going out there evading and frustrating the champ with his movement, which should open up opportunities for him to counter. Now on the other hand, we just saw Sean Strickland walk through Stylebender. He completely took away his low kick, which Stylebender does his best work off of. He just kept moving forward, kept pressuring him, and Adesanya had no answer for it. And you can call it bad game plan, you can call it just not showing up that day. Maybe he overlooked Sean Strickland a little bit, but the proof is in the pudding. That's how you beat him. That's the blueprint. And Dricus du Plessis has the cardio, he has the toughness, and he has the skill set to follow that kind of game plan. Now, will he? I don't know. I went back and watched Dricus du Plessis fight Robert Whittaker and Sean Strickland. My key takeaways from both of those fights are that the guy's a beast and he's going to eat a lot of shots, of course. That's what we know. But what I kept noticing was that he really doesn't do well against the jab. He eats them pretty easily. Like, he doesn't seem to get wobbled or rocked by these things, but he's eating a lot of them, and he's eating them at a pretty high clip. And I would think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's always moving forward. Like, this is a guy who walked down Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland doesn't give up a whole lot of ground to anybody. To give you an idea, Sean Strickland was trying to stand his ground against Alex Pereira. Did it work? No, but he was trying. But that's where things get tough, because Adesanya's got a great jab. It's long, it's accurate, and it's going to be there all night. He also likes to keep it sticky, where he throws the jab and then leaves that lead hand out there and then comes over the top with a right hand, and I think that's going to be there all night as well. It's like a 1-2 but with a pause in the middle, and that's what worked really well against Dricus du Plessis in his last two fights. Robert Whittaker was landing it, so was Sean Strickland. Another thing you have to consider here is the size and the length. Dricus du Plessis is going to look bigger in the clinch, and he's probably got the strength advantage, but Adesanya is going to be the tallest and longest guy he's ever seen. So I expect there to be some sort of adjustment period in the early stages of this fight for the champ as he settles in and starts to figure out what range he has to fight at, which to me means that Israel Adesanya probably takes the first round off of him, maybe even the second round, but I think that's really important. If he takes the first round off of him, I think Dricus du Plessis is in a lot of trouble. It's really hard to get back into a fight against Israel Adesanya once he's out ahead, and that's why you've seen so many guys who have a lot of power, who have a lot of speed, who can win fights late against different competition, struggle with Adesanya after the first round. The reads you're making while you're fighting him, he's already made. So that's why it's important to get out in front early like Sean Strickland did. You can argue Jan Blachowicz did the same thing, or at least had the ability to adjust later with that size advantage, take him down, things like that. But Adesanya's not going to get tired, and he doesn't really fight at a pace where he would. He does an awesome job of controlling the fight, controlling the distance, the range, the pace. And while Dricus du Plessis has the wrestling edge offensively, I don't think it's going to mean that much, because even if he does get Adesanya down, Adesanya's going to pop right back up. So the way that I see this fight, if Dricus Dricus du Plessis doesn't knock him out when he's retreating, like playing tall guy defense, trying to get out the back door, which is something that Dricus does a good job at. He does a great job of when guys are retreating, he lands long reaching punches like he's catching you on your way out. And Adesanya can get caught with something like that, but I do think that the length and the height is going to make it so that he's probably staying out of harm's way. But that's how Dricus du Plessis wins the fight. He catches him in a situation like that and knocks him out. If he doesn't knock him out, I think that Adesanya just wins more minutes, wins more rounds, has the crowd on his side. Give me the longer fighter, the cleaner striker, the former champion. Give me Israel Adesanya by decision and new. Next, we're looking at Kai Kara-France. He's fighting Steve Erceg. Great fight at flyweight, well placed in the co-main event spot. They could have gotten away with making it 5 rounds, but hey, Kai is coming back after somewhat of a long layoff, but he has been one of the top fighters in the division for the last few years now. Always had the feel like someone who would eventually fight for the title as well. And this dude's fought a lot. You look at their records versus their age just on the screen there. The difference in experience is huge. Kai Kara-France came into the UFC 17-7, and he's fought 2 or 3 times a year since. So you gotta love the experience. There's nothing at 31 years old that you're going to show him that he hasn't seen already. And he doesn't have a shiny record. We're talking double-digit losses here. So he's made mistakes, bumped his head, court sucked him dry, he spent that bread. But the skills are there. Fast hands, solid power for 125 pounds, good takedown defense, knows when he's in control of the fight. You look at that fight against Askarov, drops the first round, then just takes over. You started to see the swagger come out, started to feel himself, and he knew it. And then he let Askarov know it as well. And you have to be careful when fighting a guy like Kara-France to not let him get into that rhythm, because he's one of those guys who when he starts feeling good, he can compete with anybody. Now on the other side, you have Steve Erceg, who came off a very competitive loss to Alessandro Pantoja. He gave Pantoja a real run for his money, and in the moment I thought that he won. Now I go back, I rewatch, and I could see that I was biased at the time. The right man got the nod, but it was a close fight. Erceg had some big moments, won some rounds, never looked like he was in a whole lot of danger in that fight, just gave up some crucial takedowns, bad control time, and just lost minutes when he shouldn't have. I think he's a bad matchup for Pantoja. I think if they run it back on a full camp, he's going to be able to game plan a little bit better, and he probably wins. And I like me the boxing out of Steve Erceg, man. Throws nice combinations. He was landing those combinations on Pantoja, knocked Matt Schnell's spark out with a beautiful 2-3. We saw him beat David Dvorak, although Dvorak no longer in the UFC. We saw him beat Alessandro Costa, who stepped in on short notice, although that fight, you go back and watch it, there are some concerning moments for Steve Erceg. He's getting caught with a lot of combinations, a lot of right hands. The dude's got a great chin, didn't look like he was really in trouble all that much, but he was getting stung. But there's a lot to like about Steve Erceg, and I think he's going to win a lot of fights at flyweight for the next couple of years, although I do think the line is a bit wide for this fight. I think given how good he looked against the champ, the books are going to be charging you top dollar for him. And even before that, you look at the fight against Costa and Matt Schnell, you were laying chalk both times, rightfully so. But now Steve Erceg, he's made a name for himself.
Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself here.
And he's going to be fighting top guys in the division because of it. Now for Kai Kara-France, since losing to Brandon Royval a couple of years ago, who is one of the best in the division today, he's gotten very little respect from the odds makers. He was only a slight favorite against Rogerio Bontorin, who's no longer in the UFC, knocked Bontorin out in the first round. He was an underdog against Cody No Love, knocked him out in the first round. Huge underdog against Askarov, really took it to him in the second and third and won by unanimous decision. He was a dog against Brandon Moreno, who's one of the best 25ers ever, and that fight was all knotted up going into the third round and was still competitive before he got caught with that body kick that folded him up. And then last time out against Amir Albazi, disgusting robbery, he was an underdog again. It's going to show split decision loss. He won the fight and he was an underdog again. So he hasn't been favored since losing to Brandon Royval a couple of years ago. So you wouldn't expect him to be favored here, coming off of 2 losses against the guy who was typically favored. Even against Alessandro Pantoja, the line wasn't all that wide, and Pantoja's the champ. This guy's ranked number 10 fighting on short notice. So while I got big respect for the Erceg skill set, it's hard for me to think he's that much better than a more proven Kai Kara-France, especially coming off of a loss. I've made the mistake before about giving somebody too much credit for losing a fight. Again, he had moments, but he was also taken down 9 times, outlanded on the numbers, missed on a whole lot of takedown attempts as well. And Steve Erceg is a grappler at heart. He wants the fight to the ground. Kai Kara-France has very good takedown defense. You start looking at the takedown numbers against Matt Schnell, you look at the takedown numbers against Alessandro Costa, even when Alessandro Costa was taken down, how quickly he was able to get back up to his feet. There were key moments in that fight where Costa just decided to jump on his back when he had a dominant position, could have won the round if he just rode out position, but made a mistake, got reversed, got a little overzealous, but I think a tighter game plan, he beats Steve Erceg, and I don't think that it's crazy to think that Kai Kara-France can do it. The line seems too wide again, in my opinion, so give me the experience. Give me the underdog. Give me Kai Kara-France to win this fight by decision. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. You want to go a step further? Share this with somebody you know is going to be watching the fights this week. All free ways to support the channel. I appreciate it. Every like is another ramen noodle packet for Oscar. Next, we're looking at a fight at lightweight between Mateusz Gamrot fighting Dan Hooker. Not a fan of the matchmaking in this one at all. I'll be honest. I feel like Gamrot should be running it back with Arman Tsarukyan or fighting Charles do Bronx, or maybe even the winner of Moicano and Benoit Saint-Denis. Not sure how Dan Hooker fits into the picture here, but stylistically speaking, it does create a very interesting matchup for us because we know that Gamrot's looking to wrestle and control his way to victory, while Dan Hooker is just a mad lad who loves a good knock. Now on paper, Hooker's rocking an 80% takedown defense, numbers a bit misleading. He can be taken down, not many have tried, and some of the guys who have tried, like Claudio Puelles, terrible at getting the fight to the ground and went like 1 for 8 or 1 for 9 on takedown attempts, something like that. He's just flailing on the mat. Dustin Poirier really wasn't committing to a whole lot of takedowns. He's just kind of giving him the look, giving him something to think about. But you look at Islam Makhachev, took him down, Kimura'd him with ease. Mateusz Gamrot can seemingly do the same thing here, and if he doesn't get it early, it really doesn't matter. He's gonna shoot and shoot and shoot. Really exciting stuff coming from Mateusz Gamrot, let me tell you. Just look at his last fight. He shot 19 takedowns in a 15-minute fight. And what I'm about to say is probably something that everybody is saying when you watch things like this, but this dude gets rocked every fight. Take out the fluke injury against Fiziev. Remove that fight completely because we don't know what was going to happen in that fight. If you take that out, he's fought 8 times in the UFC. He's been knocked down 5. And 4 of those have been in his last 4 fights. That chin is on its last legs. That chin is a wet piece of paper waiting to be pierced. Dan Hooker is the guy to pierce that wet piece of paper, let me tell you, because one of those bony ass knees up the middle is going to find a home and it could be a wrap. And I think he might land one of those knees, forcing Gamrot to reset, kind of standing him up, popping him up, and that's when he drops him with a punch. Simply cannot justify picking a guy who is minus 300, minus 350, maybe even worse than that, who gets dropped in every fight against a guy who has dispatched better men. And even if he does get his wrestling going, if there are moments in the round where he gets dropped, he should lose that round. I don't care if he sits in top position for the last 2.5 minutes of the round. If you got dropped, you got dropped. The game is about damage, yes. And I think somebody in Dan Hooker who has a lot of time to prepare for this knows that all this guy's going to do is try to grapple with you. He cannot strike with Dan Hooker at all. And even if he tries to, Hooker's going to eat whatever he throws his way and he's going to drop him with his hands. So I think that Dan Hooker, while he's a big underdog, is a really bad matchup for Mateusz Gamrot, who might get rocked in this fight, might get chinned, might get knocked out, and then that's the end. He's had real bend but don't break kind of durability, but once that chin is cracked, I think it's a wrap, and we've seen it's almost happened so many times. I think Dan Hooker's the guy to put the nail in the coffin. Give me the hangman this week. Give me Dan Hooker to win this fight by knockout. Next, we're looking at Tai Tuivasa fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik, a fight that shouldn't go the distance. You have 2 of the bigger punchers at heavyweight and no takedowns being shot on either side. It's a kickboxing match in 4-ounce gloves, and that's what we want. And since that's the case, I'm going to take the better kickboxer in Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's been kickboxing since you were watching Dragon Tales and eating fruit by the foot. Can he get caught with something? Of course. Sneaky hand speed coming from Tai Tuivasa, very dangerous in those first couple of seconds. Massive punching power as well. Of course that can happen at heavyweight, especially like an opponent like this, but the thing about Jairzinho Rozenstruik is that he just sits back, waits for you to come in, and then it's going to counter you, and it's going to be bad. That's how I think he gets Tai Tuivasa out of there this week. I think he sits and waits for that counter, and when he does, he's going to put something big on Tuivasa, and he's going to put him out. And Tai Tuivasa has always been fun, but Rozenstruik has had a much better career in a shorter amount of time, and he shows up in shape. Tuivasa, we've talked about this before, he never appears to be in better shape when he's coming into these fights. He looks like a guy who just checks his cell phone while he's in the gulag and is like, oh shit, it's Saturday, let me go show up to the arena, let me call the oobs. And he's really skidding. He's been losing a lot of fights recently, and even when he was winning a lot of fights, here's what really stands out. You see guys go on losing streaks or winning streaks. What do they typically do? Well, if they're losing, they're like, you know what, I have to change something. I need to be able to keep my roster spot. Let me really dial it in, hire a nutritionist, get in better shape, show up. Or if they're winning, hey, I'm climbing the rankings, but when I first got here, these couple of guys just crumbled in front of me, and then it got a little bit harder, although I'm winning. So I know that if I'm going to keep climbing the ranks, I need to level up myself. He doesn't really do that. He just shows up the same way every time, and I think his name and his athleticism and his highlight reel have forced him to fight at a level of competition that he just cannot compete with. Again, anything can happen, but what we've seen from Tuivasa in recent years, and really overall in his UFC career, the guy's very hittable. Negative striking differential, and he's going against the guy who is as calm as can be. Biggie Boy's competed for so long that he is just as cool as a cucumber. He sees everything that's coming at him, downloads the data, and he's not really worried about the power, because I don't think he cares about getting knocked out. I don't think it means that much to him, and I think that serves him pretty well. Like, you look at that fight against Francis Ngannou, not a drop of fear, not one.
Biggie Boy. Oh!
Yeah, I know what happened, but still, was he scared? No. But because he's so calm, relaxed, such a good counter striker, such a rich history of kickboxing experience, I think he just waits for a shot, intercepts Tuivasa on the way in, gets him out of there, and leaves Perth with another knockout win. So give me Jairzinho Rozenstruik to win this fight by knockout. And Biggie Boy by knockout might be this week's prop of the week. Might be, might not be, but if you want your prop of the week, it's completely free. Just go to kunithmma.com, linked in the description and a pinned comment. Put your information along the bottom. You're going to get that email for the prop of the week. Last week, the prop of the week hit at plus 120, so congratulations to the 1,300 people on the email list. Our boy Chepe Mariscal showing up at 175 pounds did the damn thing. We had Chepe by round 3 or decision. We got dicey. I thought he was going to knock him out in the second round. Fight seemingly could have been finished, but Chepe gets it done by decision, plus 120. All of you guys eat. Feeling good. Prop of the week. You can get it on kunithmma.com completely for free. The things that are not free that you can get on the site are the official betting article that was profitable again last week, DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, data model, all the tools you would need to be successful from a DFS standpoint, and community forum access, which if Carlampos Gigariu stepped on an elliptical at some point in his life, we would be up. But going 9-1 on the card, not a bad week at all. Again, all of that can be found at kunithmma.com, links in the description and in a pinned comment. Back to the breakdown. Oscar, slide the graphic. Next, we have a fight between Jingliang. He's fighting Carlos Prates this week. Tough one for the Leech brother. He's not been super active. Carlos Prates looking damn good right now. Jingliang's been swapping wins and losses recently, fought 4 times in the last 4.5 years, 36 years old. Carlos Prates hasn't lost a fight in over 5 years. He's competed more than twice as much as the Leech in that time, and he's only 31. The dude is in his fighting prime, fighting out of the Fighting Nerds gym, who cannot be stopped. Abnormally long arms, and he knows how to use that length. He catches guys with that straight left hand when they feel like they're out of range, which has to be crazy to prepare for, or rather experience, because you probably can't prepare for it without fighting some dude that's much taller than Prates. Gotta be a pain in the ass when you're striking with him and you think, okay, I'm safe because I'm out of range because I can't land, and then bang, right off. So just imagine you're feeling you're safe and then you've got that straight left hand at your front door. It's probably bad biscuits, and it can land at any time from anywhere. And the dude's a shark, man. Once there's blood in the water, he's coming in for the kill. You saw that against Charles Radke. Had Radke hurt last fight, looked like he was lining him up for a big punch upstairs, and then blasts him with one of the cleanest knees to the body, a knee that would have folded up Roy Nelson. I love me some Carlos Prates this week. Really every week. I think the guy can go pretty far at 175 pounds. Give me Prates to win this fight by knockout. Next, we have a fight between Junior Tafa. He's fighting Valter Walker this week. Half of the Tafa gang on the card. This fight's a pick'em at the time of recording this. We should all do our part though and write Lucas Bresky a lot of thank you letters, because without him, Johnny Walker's little brother would be minus 250, minus 300 in this fight. Tafa can defend takedowns, but he's not a great wrestler. We saw that Pazao took him down, stayed on top for a while. Mo Usman controlled him for 12 minutes of a 15-minute fight, knocked out Parker Porter. Great, that does not move me at all. Valter Walker is going to be much bigger. He should have no problem getting this fight to the mat, and I think he probably submits him here. The same way we had a kickboxer versus a grappler last week with Denise and Williams. I think we have a similar situation this time around, only the grappler is going to do a bit more grappling because the consequence is not so great. Saw a lot of people whining online about Carl Williams not shooting for takedowns. Pretty sure Carl Williams was seeing stars within the first minute of that fight, so he probably didn't really want to shoot takedowns. It was very uncertain. But I don't think Walker gets stunned early here, and he's not going to be deterred from wrestling. I think that he gets his takedowns, he stays heavy on top, he lands some really good ground and pound, which you've seen him do on the regional scene before, and I think that's going to lead him to finding the back this week. If he doesn't find the back, I think an arm triangle is on the menu as well. Got the rough debut out of the way, fix the mistakes, come into this fight in better shape, and redeem your damn self. He's got more experience, he has more ways to win. The biggest worries in this fight are really, is he going to gas? And if the fight doesn't go that long, he probably doesn't gas out, and I think that's what's going to happen this week. Give me the bigger man, the more experienced fighter. Give me Valter Walker to win this fight by submission. Next, we have a fight between Josh Culibao and Ricardo Ramos. Fun scrap at 145 pounds. Take the under. You might get it at a good price. Now, for Josh Culibao, he needs to win this fight, man. He needs to win, and he needs to look good doing it to hold down a roster spot, especially with all these Contender Series fights coming down the pipe. He dropped his last two. Lost to Lerone Murphy. No shame in that. Murphy's top 10 talent at featherweight, but he lost to Danny Silva last time out. Danny Silva showed up, mixed the martial arts, landed harder strikes. But that was a fight that you felt like going into it that Josh Culibao should have been able to win because of his level of competition, level of experience, and just what he brings to the fight. And he just got outdogged. And that's the thing, is he's a dog. So for somebody to do that to him, that's tough. And he's been up against pretty stiff competition. Even before that, against Melsik Bagdasaryan. That is not an easy fight whatsoever. You look at the record, he won by submission. He was getting worked in that fight. Bagdasaryan throws a spinning back kick, gets his back taken when Culibao sees that he's turned around, sinks in the rear naked choke, wins the fight kind of like Grasso Shevchenko 2. PSA to fighters, stop fucking spinning. Now on the other side, Ricardo Ramos coming off of back-to-back guillotine losses, which is concerning because guillotines don't work. And I've maintained that Ricardo Ramos is super talented, all the skills are there. We can't fall in love with the potential though, it's dangerous. Your eyes will tell you the truth, and the truth is he kind of packs it in when things aren't going his way. And I felt like he kind of fell into that Diet Dubronx category, like a guy who, okay, maybe he's had some tough matches, maybe he's packed it in a little early, but the skills are there, and as he gets older, he's going to get some more dog in him. He's going to get a little bit more grit, and he's going to win fights because he can win late. But I don't think that's the case. I think there's enough data out there to suggest otherwise. So it comes down to who's going to fight for your money. In a lot of fights, that's what it is. Who's going to fight for your money? We know who will and who won't in this fight. Josh Culibao is never going to wow you with the skill set, but he's always going to give you effort. He's as tough as they come. So give me the favorite, give me the home team, give me Josh Culibao to win this fight inside the distance. Next, we have a fight between Casey O'Neill fighting Luana Santos. King Casey's been skidding a bit. Tore ACL in 2022. Since then, has lost back-to-back fights. She was 9-0 and very active, but injuries and a step up in competition have her without a win in over 2.5 years. That's significant. Luana Santos has only been a pro since 2021, but she has an 8-1 record, undefeated in the UFC, looking good in these fights. She's got decent power in the hands. She does her best work on the mat, super confident as well after recent success, and she's accepting this fight on short notice, which is proof of that. As far as the grappling goes, it's hard to say that Luana Santos isn't the better grappler here. I think that she is, and I think she might force Casey O'Neill to try to keep the fight standing, which for King Casey, I think is best case scenario for her. I don't think she's going to want to mix it up on the mat with Luana Santos, especially not early. I think that she needs to keep the fight standing and give herself the best chance of winning. And I like me some Luana Santos. I think we all do, but I don't like that she just fought a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago to be exact, and to make weight again, scary to me. Here's the thing, she had a bad weight cut against Stephanie Egger up at 135 pounds and missed weight just the fight before last. So now she's supposed to make 125 pounds back to back inside of basically a month. I don't know about that. While having to go to Australia, that's scary. You would imagine that she probably celebrated a little bit after that last win, best win of her UFC career, big moment for her, and now she has to do it again. I don't love that. Plus, you go through Luana Santos's career, even outside of the UFC, UFC, she's never had fights that were this close as far as time goes. There's always been several months in between her matches, so I could see a situation where her cardio fails her late in this fight. It seems like a mistake to do it against an opponent like this. Casey O'Neill is still very young in age and in career, fights out of a good gym. It's taken a while to get back on track, but this looks like a fight where she could find herself in the win column once again. And recency bias will keep her an underdog, of course. Lost her last 2 fights while Luana Santos just picked up a first round submission, but Santos was also a minus 400 favorite against Maria Agapova, who isn't UFC caliber, we know that. So it's good to get excited about a win, but we can't really let it cloud the judgment too much, because this will be her toughest fight against the best opponent on the absolute biggest stage she's ever fought on the shortest timeline to prepare. All signs lead to Luana Santos underperforming this week. So I like Casey O'Neill to win this fight. I'm surprised that she's an underdog given everything that goes into this one. Give me King Casey to win this fight by decision. Next, we have a fight between Jack Jenkins and Herbert Burns. I don't know how much MMA Herbert Burns has left in the tank. He should just retire and be a jiu-jitsu coach, which this fight has that written all over it. In the last few years, he just has not shown up to fight. Over 4 years since his last win, 0-3 in his last 3, all finishes, all losses. He gassed so hard against Bill Algeo, he was nearly asleep just 6 minutes into the fight, like Carlampos Gigariu. He doesn't really offer much on the feet. His best chance is getting this fight to the ground very early, finding a way to submit Jack Jenkins, and I just don't know if that happens. I think that Jack Jenkins is going to blast him with those heavy leg kicks. He's going to make him quit sometime in the second round, like we've seen in the last 3 fights. And you just look at the body language coming from Herb in these fights. It's not looking great. And against Julio Arce, I get it. Julio Arce is a stud. It's going to be a difficult fight no matter who you are, but his heart's not in it. He didn't look like he wanted to be there at all. So give me the heavy favorite, minus 800, I think the line was before I recorded this. Give me the younger guy, the hungrier fighter, more tools to win, more ways to win at range. Give me Jack Jenkins to win this fight by knockout. Another just silly fight. I know this is going to be a popular take, but Tom Nolan is not that great, although he's going to win this fight, because Tom Nolan, he can hurt guys and he can put them away early, but he doesn't have a great chin. Given some of the softest matchmaking we've seen in recent memory, giant late weight. You could almost call him a weight bully. If he was older, you'd be calling him a weight bully. But he's getting teed up against these old fighters that are at the end of their career. Alex Reyes 1000% does not fight again, win or lose this fight this week, but he's a minus 12, actually minus 1300 favorite. Last time I looked. Don't bet him. Don't parlay him. If you need Tom Nolan, take Tom Nolan by knockout in the first round because the odds are going to be better. You might even want to take a sprinkle on Alex Reyes by knockout just because. But I'm not going to be picking against this massive favorite against smaller, older fighters at the end of their career. So give me Tom Nolan to win this fight by knockout, and then let's match him up with somebody who actually makes sense. Thank you. Next, we're looking at Kenan Song fighting Ricky Glenn, a scary one to make a prediction on because both these guys are very hard to trust. I do lean Song Kenan though. He hasn't been lighting it up recently, but he has ran into some very good fighters. Max Griffin, solid veteran. Kevin Jousset making a name for himself. Ian Gary, who can seemingly fight for the title soon. Not a whole lot of shame in those losses. He has power, decent size for the weight class, and I see him hurting Ricky Glenn early with the hands. Now on the other side, Ricky Glenn is a veteran, has faced decent competition along the way. He should have the grappling edge here possibly, but I think he's at the end of his line. He's ready to call it a career because just look at the moves that he's making. Coming off of back-to-back knockout losses in the first round, moving up in weight, which you might think is a good idea. Matchups could make better sense up there, but physically I don't think so, because this is a guy who was fighting at featherweight just a few years ago. Had bad results at lightweight. Now at 35 years old is moving up to 170, so from 145 to 170 in that time frame, developing what looks like some durability issues, especially against a puncher like Song. I don't like it at all. So give me the favorite in this one. I think that he catches Glenn a few times early and has some big moments. The new gloves though obviously are anti-knockout gloves, so I don't think that he gets knocked out, but I think Song does win on the scorecard. So give me Kenan Song to win this fight by decision. And lastly, we're looking at a fight between Stewart Nicoll fighting Jesus Aguilar. We know that Aguilar is a guillotine connoisseur, loves to jump a guillotine, make it work on the regional scene. Cool. In the UFC it doesn't work. Is it impossible? No, but very low percentage. Outside of hitting a guillotine, I don't think that he's going to win this fight. Stewart Nicoll is taller taller, longer. He's going to come in the better wrestler here. I could see him getting Aguilar down pretty easily in this fight. Aguilar's not afraid to jump that guillotine or just to let a guy take him down. And Jesus Aguilar is tough, but this dude's coming in hot. He's going to waste no time. He's going to look to end this fight early, and I think that he can. Jesus Aguilar, in my opinion, lost some points after that Mateusz Mendonça fight. Slowed down, gave up some bad positions, gave up some bad minutes of that fight. You can argue that he might have lost that fight, and I could see him doing similar things this week against what I would consider a better opponent. Now, I do worry that Nicoll might gas himself out, might punch himself out looking for the finish. He's used to finishing these fights. He's going to be fighting in front of an electric crowd if they show up that early in the day. So we might see that adrenaline dump. He might gas out. So although he's a decent favorite, he's kind of unproven, a lot of question marks. I don't think he's somebody you want to be throwing into parlays all willy-nilly. And I think if this fight goes beyond the first round, you might have a nice live betting spot for Jesus Aguilar depending on how those first 5 minutes went. But I would not be surprised to see Stewart Nicoll take it to him this week and finish him at some point. So give me the new kid. Give me Nicoll to win this fight inside the distance. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I'll see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.